Amit. Thanks very much for joining us today during this discussion. I know we wanted to speak about security GRC, trends that we're seeing within SAP, S4, and how we think AI is potentially going to affect security as a whole. I'll pass it over to you just to give a brief introduction. And yeah, once again, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Richie, for the opportunity. Glad to reconnect with you. We've been working together for a while. So for those that don't know, Amit Chawla, I'm a SAP security architect. I've led teams, built teams, etc., and still pretty hands-on into the system as well. So happy to reconnect with you, Richie.
Perfect. Thanks again. And for those of you that don't know me, I've been SAP recruitment now for 18 years. I'm a partner at InUltra. I oversee the Americas. And me and Amit, as he said, we've known each other for a few years now, worked with each other previously. So thanks very much. We'll get straight into it, Amit. So we've got 5 or 6 questions here that we just want to cover, and very eager to get your thoughts on these areas. What are the main differences between SAP security on ECC versus S4HANA, in your opinion?
Yeah, so we'll set aside, some of the functionality differences between ECC and S4. I think those are pretty well covered under our functional leads, like universal ledger, material ledger, those sort of things are, very different, obviously, and they naturally have security impacts. But those impacts are essentially qualified as the same sort of things that we would see in like a support pack or a hot fix. So that those aren't necessarily game changing. So we'll set some of those things aside. But the main difference between ECC and S4 is how the security team and how the developers work together to present security to our customers. So in ECC, you're restricted just to the GUI, maybe the web GUI or perhaps the enterprise portal for functionality. But in S4, the default is almost, in many ways, is Fiori. Many apps or T codes that we've used before takes an extra step to use the T code. SAP as a platform would prefer you to use the Fiori apps. So now that we've introduced Fiori into the mix, the usability for the end users goes up. They enjoy using Fiori more. It's easier to use. But on the security side, it does add several layers of complications on how to present security and present screens. Basically, the presentation layer changes quite a bit. And there's a lot of mechanics and pipes and fidgets or things that we have to fidget with on the back end to make it work in S4. It's not quite as straightforward as it is in ECC. But the good thing is all of the principles still apply, but now you have an additional presentation layer.
Appreciate that. And what would you say the best ways to keep SAP systems secure over time?
Well, we have a number of ways, right? So I think what's been popular these days and making the rounds with a lot of the customers I've been supporting is what they refer to as the 3 lines of defense, right? So that'll evolve. I think that terminology continues to evolve, but essentially it comes down to 3 main things, right? You build roles and access. We still call them roles. You can call them business roles, etc. But you build the access to where it is tailored to the users, and whether it's a large company, there'll be segregation of duties concerns, SOX concerns, etc. But even for smaller enterprises, controls are still important, and so maybe not to the rigor of a larger enterprise. But the key takeaway is you build tailored security roles for those users that you intend, and we have also. The second part would be to provision that access appropriately, meaning do we have approvals? Do we have designated people that can review the access? Do we have designated people that can add to those roles and remove access to those roles? And then finally, the third piece would be, do we have a process in place to continuously monitor? Are our controls still effective? Do we need to modify our controls? Is there a process improvement that we can do? So first, if we were to sum it up, step 1, you build good security. Step 2, you provision it appropriately in the sense that with approvals, and you document those approvals. And step 3 is you constantly review your process for continuous improvement. So that's the best way that I've seen so far. And obviously, there's much more nuance into this, and not applicable for everyone, but that's a great place to start.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate for that. And what would you say are the benefits of using SAP Security on S/4HANA versus ECC?
So the key benefit will be interoperability between external platforms. So what does that mean? That means, for example, if you have a third-party application that wants to interact with SAP, in previous ECC versions, it would be more difficult to get that system to talk to SAP. The security would be a little different. You'd have to publish either an external portal site, etc. But in S4, those mechanisms, some of the heavy lifting is already done by Fiori. So Fiori allows you to expose SAP applications, as we call them, or T codes for the ECC world to the external. So if you wanted someone just to do, let's say, purchase order approvals or create a purchase requisition without actually logging into the system, that mobility and flexibility on basically a platform agnostic service, if you will, is readily available in S4. So S4 doesn't require that you have a GUI. You can use a browser. You can use any number of apps. There's some native apps available in the iOS world and the Android world. So those are readily available. So I would say mobility is a key, and the user interface is the big change. Some people do not prefer Fiori because it has a lot of flash to it. But I think on the whole, I would say 80% of the users that we encounter really prefer the Fiori presentation than the GUI.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. In regards to AI, both of us attended Sapphire this year. It's been a huge topic across all tech software, ERP applications. How do you think that's going to impact the role of an SAP security and authorizations professional over the next few years?
Yeah, so with the introduction of AI, I'm actually pretty excited about this because there's a lot of gaps that we've seen, a lot of manual effort that we've had to exert to address some of the needs of our customers. And so when I see the prospects for AI, now none of this is necessarily here yet, but as we see where we're trending is on the AI is on the reporting in SAP, right? So for example, when we're doing a segregation of duties remediation project, let's say, we have an external auditor says you need to address these findings or potential findings or these gaps in your processes, and we need to run a series of reports. If we have AI-enabled reports, if we can have, without resorting to spreadsheets and access databases to do a lot of this stuff, I think if we had an AI report or some intelligence built in, I think that would accelerate that process. So it gives us another tool to be able to report on data much faster. We've been using much of this, like, with Power BI and other things, try to get the data that we want, and it compares, gives us sort of trend analysis and usage history and et cetera. And I see some excitement on the AI front that maybe it could give us even more insights into how people are interacting with the system. So for a security professional, in terms of how the system is actually being used, and is that data meaningful, we can report to our customers saying, these people have these 10 roles assigned to them, but only 4 of them were actually being used. Are you sure you want to give all 10 to this user, considering that maybe they haven't used them in the past 6 months or past year? That would be the type of information that any auditor, any financial executive or CFOs would be very interested in, especially if they're signing their name to the SOX report. So these are the sort of things that has me really excited as a reporting that AI can offer on SAP security and its usage.
Amit, fantastic information. Really appreciate it. I know it's hard to condense all the information in a short period of time, and I'm sure we could speak a lot longer, but excellent intel. Thanks for taking the time out to speak with us. And we look forward to being in touch in the future. So thanks very much again.
Anytime. I'm happy to do it and enjoyed this conversation and reconnecting with you.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Amit. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.